Okay, welcome to the show, everybody. It's House of Decline. Steven is my name. We also have Alex here.
Hi.
And this week, I read an essay by Neal Stephenson, who is a sci-fi writer that I like, that he wrote in 1999 called In the Beginning Was the Command Line. And it's about computers, which I love. And so on this episode, we're going to talk about technology and how crazy and complicated it is, how you can do different stuff with it, like connect all of the computers together, and then that's it. That's really all.
Yeah, you can connect them all together. It's a neural network. It's just like the Navi tree in Avatar, and then we'll all have hair sex. Actually, that's coming too, because they have those like fleshlights that are like that you can have sex with a person electronically, right?
Right, and as tweeted out today, I think Elon Musk has invented a way to get a monkey to suck off a computer, which was that was put out today. He's connecting a computer to a monkey's brain, and then the monkey starts blowing the computer. It's crazy. So we have that to look forward to. I'm very optimistic that soon we'll all be somehow neuro-linked into sucking off digital objects, because that's really the best way to keep us from fighting each other. Which
we have explored the internet, but have you ever sucked the internet's dick?
Yeah.
This is the new hypergoop technology.
It's like, download. It's got a whole new meaning. Yeah, but this touches on an idea that's in the Neal Stephenson essay, which is that it seems like the media and everything surrounding us is like trying to keep us feckless so that we don't all nuke each other. And there's that idea of like that's kind of a conspiratorial idea that like they're all sort of working together to keep us from achieving our full potential of violence. But it is a bit interesting. They're trying to make the brain and the CPU combine into one primordial like cyborg thing. And then that's how we'll invent God. So that's a cool project.
So is that the general thrust of the essay? Like through onlineification, we'll do the human instrumentality project and then eventually become AI God or whatever?
No, the general thrust is like that. The general thrust is that we should all be using Linux. That's the general thrust. And then he goes into that in detail about using Linux. He started off as a Mac user in the 80s. And those people are extremely dedicated to Macs, generally speaking. But for Neal Stephenson, who is a writer, he goes into the experience of he was trying to like save a Word file on his Mac in like 1987, and somehow it deleted this like basically novel he was working on. And he freaked out and went to a store to go have them help, like went to find some tech geeks. And they hooked his hard drive up, and they're like, wow, it's wiped. There's no trace of this file left. Like sometimes they're able to find a file that's been deleted, like in a sector on the hard drive, but in this case it was just gone. And so that's when he switched off from Macs entirely, despite being an early adopter. And then he goes into his experience using Linux, but it's not a very technical essay. I really would recommend it because it's not hard to understand. And he goes into extended metaphors that are fun. There's an entire metaphor about him going to Disney World. There's just a lot of cool stuff about culture, media, and the computers we use, and the reason why every computer has a graphical user interface instead of just a flashing cursor, which is how it used to be. You just had a flashing cursor on a black screen, and you'd type commands into it, and sometimes if you type the right commands, a cool thing will happen. So
But now
Yeah.
you have like something that's more human oriented or more like I wonder what I mean Neil Stephenson's still alive. I shouldn't be saying that, but so I wonder what Neil Stephenson's reactions to stuff like Second Life and World of Warcraft and stuff like that, or Twitch, even example.
No, he has
which
a book.
is still a graphical user interface.
Yeah, he has a
heart,
book.
But it's a
He has a whole book of sort of surrounding what happens when you're inside a video game. Can't remember. It's like 1 or 2 books back.
yeah.
He's hip to the technology.
The Ready Player One element of it. So what's interesting about it is I get how it's supposed to pacify us, because it definitely pacifies me. Like I am kept inactive by the endless choice of entertainment that I have before me, and sort of the amazing expanse of the world all being condensed down to this graphical user interface keeps me inactive, because it simultaneously is able to make sense of the world and allows me to never interact with it actually. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of the purpose of the sinister GUI.
Yeah, and a GUI, or graphical user interface, is like a stack of metaphors that don't necessarily make sense when you put them together. Like, it's a stack of weird abstractions and metaphors. You drag an icon to the trash. You open a window. I mean, you're not really dragging it. I mean, it's a weird, like, that's not necessarily consistent in the environment necessarily. Like, it makes sense to us now, but if you sort of start thinking about all the abstracted metaphors, it's kind of like a minefield of mixed metaphors, which for certain people who may be more neurodivergent, when you mix metaphors, that kind of breaks their brains, and that may explain why Linux has a reputation for a certain type of guy or gal. It's like, I don't understand what you mean. Can you please
drag
state that?
a file to the trash?
Yeah.
No, we shouldn't make fun. We love all of our neurodivergent listeners,
well,
of which all of you are.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's I got a list of some more of the metaphors. So, like,
give me some more metaphor. What's the Disneyland metaphor? I'm super interested in that one.
Well, the Disneyland is, I think it's Disney World, which I can never remember which one's where and which one was first, and
it doesn't matter. One of the theme parks.
There was a Disney World that he went to that had like a Taj Mahal, like, life-size scale reproduction of like Taj Mahal in a ruined forest in India. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how he's walking through this, and there's not a single like unique identifier of anyone who made it. And it's this, he knows that it was a massive amount of work created by a huge team of people filled with individual artists, and everything is perfect. But it seems like it's the real world, but it's not the real world. It's like something placed over the world that allows us to understand it. But it's been cleaned up, because it's not actually like what it's like in India. Everything's extremely sanitized. There aren't a shit ton of people everywhere, and a lot of noise.
Yeah, there aren't a shit ton of fucked up tourists as well.
Like, there's
which is part of the experience.
Yeah, there's nothing. Everything is manicured, and he compares that to Windows or Mac OS, one of the graphical user interfaces, where it's abstracting what's actually going on in the computer, and when you use the command line, you're one level down. It's still an abstraction level up from what the machine knows how to do, which is expressed in machine code, which he says only very special people know how to read. Very, very special people. There's like, you can, I don't know, probably in the 10,000 number range of people who can do that.
If I can relate this back to Kingdom Hearts for a second.
Almost made me spit out my water.
So in Kingdom Hearts and in the new Space Jam Legacy movie and in the Emoji movie, you see a lot of they travel to different websites or different worlds, and those are conveyed as little planets. In the same way that in the Antoine Saint-Exupéry classic, The Little Prince is on like a bunch of little planets, and he travels to a bunch of different worlds to experience like these sort of mitigated experiences, or these experiences that don't comprise the entirety of reality, but are sort of compartmentalized and separated. And it's very in the Kingdom Hearts worlds. It's these Disney worlds, but you'll see on the little planets they only have like 2 locations represented on the little planets. So it's this bowdlerized and limited version of the world that's inherently not as expansive as the one that you see on film, which through your suspension of disbelief becomes expansive and whole. These planets in Kingdom Hearts, these little graphical user interfaces of these previously larger ideas, become simplified and emptier.
So Stevenson says that that's because what's missing is that they're missing it being translated into like clear and explicit written words. It's all being transmitted in images and experiences and user interfaces. That they're eschewing the written word, which Stevenson says is the only really like non-fungible thing. The only really unique thing in order to transmit information is words.
That goes into like a deeper philosophical discussion of like, if you develop a pictorial language, will that eventually become words? If you develop that type of symbolic language.
Well, that's I mean,
one, like Asian languages are have pictorial written languages. So I don't know. I don't necessarily. I don't know.
Well, so he ties this into like what like the sort of American process of conveying a value system to people in the future, and he says we do that through culture like Disney, and it's able to be transmitted all around the world. Like, so Disney gives us like a certain set of values. Like there's a value system in Disney that some people find really appealing. And
well, that's what's unique about. I think Disney's an interesting example because it's one of the only companies I can think of besides like other wholesome companies like Build-A-Bear Workshop or something like that comes with an ideology. Like Warner Brothers doesn't have an ideology packaged with it. You can't think of you know the Disney ideology, even though that ideology has since become diluted by the fact that it now owns, Married with Children.
So let me read one paragraph from here. So this is from the essay. A huge, rich, nuclear-tipped culture that propagates its core values through media steepage seems like a bad idea. There is an obvious risk of running astray here. Words are the only immutable medium we have, which is why they are the vehicle of choice for extremely important concepts like the Ten Commandments, the Quran, and the Bill of Rights. Unless the messages conveyed by our media are somehow pegged to a fixed written set of precepts, they can wander all over the place and possibly dump loads of crap into people's minds. And that's kind of what's going on with QAnon, and what's being exploited in people's minds is being done by people who understand technology and who use computers without graphical user interfaces.
Okay. Here's where the socialism gears start turning and thinking about what an alphabet really is versus say what the symbols on a graphical user interface, especially on a Mac or a PC, are. what those symbols are corporate-owned language. That is privately owned language that you have a license to and that you are using, and that if we're not careful will become the parlance of our general world, and as such, all of our language will be mediated by the powers that be. Whereas with an alphabet, that's a truly universal. You can't copyright the alphabet, even though Google changed their name to Alphabet, presumably to do so.
Right. Yeah, they're gonna somehow figure out a way to do it to own every letter.
Yeah. We own B. We got B. We bought the copyright to B.
We bought every letter but Q.
Oh no, Jim Watkins owns that.
Jim Watkins figures out how to buy Q. I bought the letter Q.
That's what's also interesting about, and the direct counter to the Neal Stephenson essay is that while these graphical user interfaces pacify us, what Q represents is a shift in this paradigm where these graphical user interfaces actually can radicalize us, maybe not in the direction that Neal Stephenson would like, but definitely we've seen the power of this to actually activate people in a way that it hasn't before. And I think from the very early days of 4chan was weird because it was able to mobilize because it seems organic, and it seems like you're convincing yourself to do it, which is what's the interesting thing about anonymous activism or like stochastic activism like that. Because in the early days of 4chan, all of these shiftless, apolitical anons went out to protest Scientology in droves. In huge numbers that, like, none of these people had ever gone out to protest anything before, and they went for this because they had all convinced themselves.
Yeah.
That this was something that they had decided on, when really it was decided by themselves and the group. And Jim Watkins, I don't know how savvy he is. Maybe Ron Watkins understood this more and explained it to Jim. Ron and Jim Watkins, for people who don't know, are... basically, they are QAnon. They're the owners of 8chan, and they are genius internet trolls who are also some of the worst and most opprobrious people on the planet, just to look at. They're just the weirdest fucking looking people on earth. But Jim and Ron Watkins understood the power of this stochastic form of media interface to... get people active, because it makes it seem as if you're not taking orders, but rather acting on your own instinct, which is why I think it's more powerful in activating people that way. So I think this is sort of like maybe a new paradigm that Neal Stephenson didn't necessarily predict with his 1999 essay. Like what Chan culture and what anonymity and that type of thing does to how a person brings their online self into the real world.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't go that far. Internet culture was not a huge problem in 1999. It was thought to be a very, very cool, like, techno-utopia type thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I mean, it is the paradigm change. Like, it's interesting to me that in this Q documentary, all of the people who are really into it don't actually use 8chan because they don't like the interface. And they're like, yeah, we get it cleaned up. We get a cleaned up version without all the gross stuff and the weird interface. And there's an under subterranean group of people who are pushing this stuff along because they know how the stuff works. They know how technology works. And it's easy to be manipulated if you don't know how technology works. Because you're presented with this interface that is causing you to go in a certain direction. Like, it's like driving a car that you can't turn left in. The steering wheel stops when you try to turn it to the left. You can only make right turns. And if that's the only car you've ever had, you'll never even know that you don't have to make a huge U-turn every time you want to turn left and then make 3 right turns.
I just like that character that you've just created, and I imagine his name is Barry, and he lives in the north of England, and he's like, oh no, I'll just keep making... Oh, every trip takes me like 70 minutes, because I don't know how to lift her. I'm not an Amber Turner. Zoolander. I'm related to that movie.
And, I mean, so the two groups that he identifies are the Morlocks and the LOE, or the LOI, from H.G. Wells' Time Machine. Yeah. And the Morlocks are the ones who know how everything works, and they are the computer programmers and the technicians at Disney World. And the LOI are like the middle to upper class people who can afford to pay for the fruits of their labor. Stevenson is showing his class here by not talking about poor people at all. But the intersection of poor people and technology is always a couple years behind, and has been made worse by assholes like Mark Zuckerberg, who does stuff like gives everyone in a developing country a Facebook phone that can only connect to the internet through Facebook. So millions and millions of people in developing countries only ever experience the internet through Mark Zuckerberg's fucked up brain.
Mediated corporate language. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Trying to own the goddamn alphabet.
Yeah. Facebook is trying to own the internet. And what we have now is a competition of about 4 to 5 companies trying to own everything. Amazon is the closest. Amazon is closest to owning everything. The reason Amazon needs to be broken up, it has nothing to do with its delivery business of goods to you. And if anyone ever uses that as an argument, like, oh, well, you like getting stuff the next day, that is not the part of Amazon that needs to be broken up. Amazon owns most of the internet. And that's what needs to be broken up. And Google owns the entire advertising industry. And that's what needs to be broken up.
It's the invisible world, and you only get the language to decode this invisible world if, one, you're just like one of those autodidacts who, despite circumstances, just manages to teach themselves that language, which is very hard to do, and you have to be unusually smart to do. Or you go to college and you get the education and you have the money in order to decode this language. It's like I always thought it was the irony that you only get to really learn about communism in college. It's true that the academy does teach you communism, but the people that would really benefit from learning about socialism, i.e. working class people, don't get the opportunity to go to the academy to learn about it because they're to start off in a less advantageous position. Yeah. But I'm not saying, if the Bessemer Amazon unions had read the Communist Manifesto, No, I'm kidding. Obviously, there's a lot of reasons. And never blame workers for why a union drive doesn't pass. If you do that, you are the shittiest person on earth.
Yeah, oh yeah. If we're talking about the Bessemer union vote that did not go the way people wanted.
It did not, and they crushed it. Although there were
there's an asterisk.
There was vote tampering for sure, but I still believe even with the vote tampering, I think it probably wouldn't have gone through anyway.
Yeah, I mean there's a problem in that Amazon could just decide to shut down operations in that entire state. Oh wow.
Yeah, big asshole outside my window.
Are you on a freeway? Are you on an interstate? Alex, what? Are you? What is the word? Houseless? No, abodeless.
Abodeless. I'm lean-to-less. That's mean. There are a lot of lean-to-less people out in the yard.
What were we talking about?
Amazon, Bessemer Union, Amazon owning everything.
Oh, yeah. So Amazon could probably just pull out of that entire area and just set up a shop in a different town. And they have that. That's like. And then those people are fucked if Amazon does that. So
there's literally an episode of The Office where this happens.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't blame them at all because there's probably not. The thing is, there's probably not a better job around right now there. Which
I don't know Bessemer. I shouldn't make assumptions about Bessemer, Alabama.
Well, I feel like that might be the best thing going. And if they decided to do a union, and then Amazon was like, okay, we're gonna put our factory in another town. Goodbye. That would suck.
It employs 3% of the town, which is a pretty significant number.
Yeah, that would destroy the town, and which is, I mean, I don't know. I don't know much about the town, but I've read that it doesn't have much else employment opportunities besides Amazon.
Yeah. So, but that just goes into the general Amazon is too big to really do anything to. It's achieved this thing where it seems like it has this impenetrable power. The only thing I can see happening to it is like Bezos dies and there's this weird power vacuum that happens in the company, and through petty, corporate battles, that's how Amazon gets broken up.
Yeah, I mean, unions historically have been more powerful in the Northeast, so a union drive in the Northeast would probably do better. I think that would be my inclination.
It's going to happen again.
Yeah.
I can't see it not happening again. I mean, 1/3 still pretty fucking good, especially considering how much anti-union propaganda there is out there.
Yeah.
The fact that it was even 2-1, the fact that it wasn't a bigger margin means that there is skepticism of the old love your employers philosophy that is so prevalent in America.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Elon Musk has a leg up on Bezos in that more people there's like a cult of personality around Elon Musk that I think Bezos struggles with.
Yeah, because, Bezos isn't a hype man. Bezos is an actual competent businessman and, understands supply chains and, leveraging debt in a way that Elon Musk, that's not his ability. Elon Musk's ability is pure hype. He understands the nerdy male mind like nobody else. The nerdy male mind at all echelons of power. Like the Kissinger nerdy male mind and the Pepe nerdy male mind. He gets it. And he understands what makes them excited, what gives them boners.
We should send Elon Musk to... Elon Musk should go take out the Jim Watkins. If Elon Musk wants to become Tony Stark, then he should just start taking out the worst internet troll we've ever known.
I think Elon Musk would probably like Jim. I think Jim Watkins and Ron Watkins are probably into Elon Musk.
But Elon Musk shouldn't be into them. Embrace the light, Elon Musk.
I could see Elon Musk doing a very ill-advised interview with Jim and Ron Watkins.
Smoking a doobie.
Being like, haha, memes are awesome sauce, don't you agree?
Yeah. My favorite thing in the Q documentary so far has been the South African guy and his wife.
Baruch
Baruch
he was definitely a fake Q.
Yeah.
You're just LARPing.
It's like a 50-year-old guy who goes on chans all day, which I can't believe exists.
People love it. They love that life. It's the GUI, even though it has a bad interface, it's I think that interface leads to this sort of conspiratorial thought. Like, it's important that there's all of this random horrible shit surrounding the Q drops, because that's what gives you the satisfying nature of oh, you feel like you're a detective and you're going to the depths of the internet alleyways to, meet Deep Throat or something like that. So it's part of the mystery, and the fact that you have to really search and scour and interact with a lot of nefarious characters is part of that sort of fantasy element. That is why people are so propelled into activation by QAnon, I think.
Well, mark my words, there's going to be a Q Linux OS that gets put out pretty soon. I'm betting you. And it's a little worrisome, but that the tech companies are the major tech companies are starting to ban right-wing people. I think that's bad because they're going to go to the free stuff, which is Linux, and then Linux is going to be overrun by alt-right weirdos being racist, and that sucks. That's gonna suck.
Yeah, you talked about how like Linux people who make fun of the Mac versus PC people, they use language that has now been adopted by the alt-right, right?
Yeah, there's been a merging of Linux people, Linux enthusiasts, and alt-right, and Mac versus PC to them is like Democrats versus Republicans, kind of. That's loose. I mean,
no, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good analogy, I have to say. It's all glad-handing the same system where corporations spy on you and take your shit and mediate language.
Yeah. So, but I think there's always going to be a core set of users who are not crazy fascists. But a very vocal minority of them are, and it's growing as like the tech companies start banning people. I mean, you have alt-right people putting out lists like boycott lists, and Microsoft and Google are on the list of boycott, like corporations to boycott. And and Apple is too, obviously. When I saw that, I'm like, oh no, all the truck people are coming to Linux. Like, they're all going to be like, dang it, I'm going to shoot this computer.
So we have to create a left-wing OS now.
Well, there have been attempts at something not like that, but, I mean, do you know about Temple OS?
No, I've heard the name before, but I have no idea what it is.
Temple OS was a guy, a genius computer programmer with schizophrenia, who was convinced God was telling him how to build the perfect operating system. And he built it, and it's called Temple OS, and you can install it, and it is psycho. Yeah, if you want to test it out, you can do it in a virtual machine. You can use VirtualBox and install it to test it out, give it a little test run, have some fun. I forget the name of the guy who made it. I'll have to look up who made. Hold on, excuse the typing. Let's see. Oh, Terry Davis.
Davis.
Yeah. It's a biblical themed lightweight operating system. Yeah.
What's so good about Temple OS?
Oh, it's not necessarily good. It's not good. It's just like it takes a genius to write an operating system by alone. And
yeah.
He was a genius who had schizophrenia, so it's just like a fascinating piece of art, basically. That is, I mean, just at a higher level.
Now, speaking of wacky digital art, NFTs. Everyone's talking about NFTs, which we talked about. I feel we are very prescient on the show, because about a month before all of this NFT shit blew up, we had Steve on the show talking about it, saying, it's this thing where it's digital art. And now NFTs have become this sort of meme shorthand for stupid, destructive capitalist thing. But something that may shock you, unpopular opinion. I mean, we have had Steve on a guest, and we like Steve very much, so it's evident we aren't as hostile towards NFTs as other people. But, NFTs, they're not as bad as people would make them out to be.
I don't think they're bad at all. People need to, with the environment stuff, that's BS. That's a bunch of BS. That's not a reason to oppose it. It's because it's not, that's like any computer that has to be on 24 hours a day is taking up energy. What about streetlights? It's for, we accept energy usage for a purpose, and this is not a stupid purpose, so.
Well, some people do call it. Okay, the other reason why people have it a stupid purpose, they're ragging it because of the environmental thing, which is fine. Even if you asked someone like Steve, he'll say, yes, Bitcoin and Ethereum are destroying the Earth.
They're not. They're not nearly the biggest outputters of carbon.
Yeah, but I think the reason why people have so much disgust for it is because what the energy is used for is seen as incredibly abstract, as having no value whatsoever because it's totally intangible. And so there's this philosophical hatred of NFTs as being this sort of, oh, you just own a JPEG. When that's not really it. What you own is a certificate of authenticity that is, provable using proof of work logic,
like
right?
the only person who can really ideologically oppose them is like someone like Banksy, who's like all all art should be anonymous and it should not be attributable to anyone and it should be completely free all the time.
Yeah.
So if you're a Banksy person,
he doesn't believe that because he sells art all the time.
If
he's a multi-billionaire.
If you're like philosophically opposed to things like that, I mean, I don't know if I'm actually philosophically in favor of NFTs because I don't know if I think art should be able to be attributable to anyone. But
what I think
can't argue with that really.
Yeah. What I think what they're more disgusted with is the fact that like these graphical user interfaces, or like that Disneyland version of the Taj Mahal, this is seen as an ersatz and removed form of art. It's seen as, and a guy we haven't mentioned yet, but I think is pretty relevant to this entire conversation, is Baudrillard, right? Because Baudrillard talked a lot about simulacra. Simulations and simulacra, right? And how like a photograph is like a simulation of reality, and a photo of that photographed is a third stage simulacra, and how when things become more removed from the original product of reality, they take on this sort of disgusting form, or they take on this strange form, or something that causes unease or misinformation, or is generally kind of well, I don't know if he ascribes a value judgment to simulacra. He's just describing a phenomenon that exists, that we make simulations of simulations, and our concept of reality is mediated by the simulation and not reality itself. And I think that's what people dislike about NFTs more than anything, is the fact that this is an abstraction of art. Like when you own a piece of art, like traditionally you own the canvas, you own the physical piece of art, you can look at it, you can see the brushstrokes. If you're cavalier, you can touch it if you want. And the idea of that artwork just being in a digital space and not being tangible and being infinitely reproducible if you just take like a screenshot of it or something, it is lesser than the actual physical object.
Yeah, but we have this paradigm like in music. So if you don't know, Taylor Swift has re-recorded her second album because she doesn't own the recording of her first album, but she does own the abstract songs. So she can re-record them and get the full rights back, but there's two sets of rights when you're licensing a song for use. You sell the actual recording and you sell the abstract rights, like to the concept of the song.
Yeah, the copyright.
So what Taylor Swift is going to be able to do, because she wants to basically give the middle finger to the asshole who owns her songs because he's a sex abuser, is she's going to be able to deny it's called sync rights when it's a movie, the sync rights to all of her music, even if they want to sell the songs to like a commercial or a movie, and then she can give them the rights to the new recordings and make all the money herself. So it's a genius move. I think Taylor Swift could be the next Jeff Bezos.
Let's hope. Let's hope she shaves her head and starts taking HGH and gets all big.
Taylor Swift, please start a media empire. Come on the show.
Yes.
Also.
Come on the show, T Swift. We are big fans. Big fans.
Yeah,
the other thing that I want to draw attention to is art forgeries. So that's what I was talking about. Say you own a traditional piece of art, but in the art world, forgeries are a hugely common thing, especially of very valuable pieces of art. There have been endless stories about, this thing that was in the Louvre for years, turns out it's fake. The real one was in a German bunker and owned by Hans Blufeld. But the idea of like owning that physical piece of art, what if it turns out to be a forgery? Then it's worthless. All of its value is gone. So what would have really mattered there is that verification of authenticity. And what an NFT can do is verify authenticity much better than you can in reality. which is what's weird. What makes the art valuable is not only the physical object, but also the faith and the promise that it is actually authentic.
Yeah, that it only works. It only works until we invent quantum computing, in which case all the crypto algorithms that they used will be reproducible, which I'm looking forward to. They'll have to be on top of it with quantum computing. The reason being is that quantum computers will be much, much, much more powerful than anything we have today. So they'll be able to decode the hashes in a snap. And all the crypto, that'll be the next big paradigm shift. If you're looking out for them, you want to make some money on a crypto market. Whenever they invent the first quantum crypto coin, that'll be one to look for.
Mm-hmm. Quantum coin.
Yeah, in the next 50 to 80.
Just put quantum in front of everything. 1,000
years from now. If you're alive in 1,000 years, when they actually figure out quantum computing, which is my guess when that'll happen.
Also, this talk about this technology and how people are kept pacified by technology. That sort of goes into larger theories in the House of Decline universe that I want to foment now into something that I call... I'm sure it already... Does the phrase techno-fascism already exist? I'm sure it does.
Yeah. It does.
Let me look it up.
Yeah. I mean, there's some... Like, Stevenson goes into that, like the pacifying, because, like, the world is too complex to comprehend everything in detail. So interfaces are useful because they simplify, and then you can also use them to instill values, like we were talking about. And if the values that they are instilling are pacifying, then perhaps that's good when you have a human who it's in their nature to be aggressive sometimes, or maybe most of the time, because it's a harsh world out there. And maybe we need to be pacified. Okay.
Yeah, well, something that the old adage, bread and circuses, right? And it was seen as a cynical thing. Who was it? Was a Roman emperor that first said you need to give people bread and circuses in order to...
Yeah, it was I believe it was Emperor Bigisticus.
Bigisticus. Yeah. It was Emperor Agrippum of Bigisticus.
Agrippum of Bigisticus. Yeah.
Agrippum of Bigisticus. And but yeah, the idea that what you need in order to have a pacified cattle-like populace, you just need to feed them and you need to keep them entertained, right? And the question that America and the modern neoliberal capitalism is, what if we can do this with just circuses? And it's been working so far. It's like people have been not noticing that their bread is getting less day by day.
What if we made Bud Light and Miller Lite and Coors Light and then told people that they were different?
But exactly, circuses. It's like, it's not actually nutritious. It's just the same bland, endlessly reproducible thing that seems different. And you're entertained by the novelty, so you ignore the fact that your life is actually depleting and that you're doing something bad to your body. Techno-fascism does already exist as a term, but I sort of use it in a different way. I see it as interchangeable with neoliberalism, because I think there is an argument to be made that the current neoliberal hegemon does kind of... or can easily slip into a form of fascism. You know, like when Jonah Goldberg, that awful, shitty Republican commentator, wrote his book about liberal fascism, he may have been right, but for the wrong reasons. Because what we see with this new type of techno-fascism is the idea that this power elite are the only ones that should be given the access to this information economy, this flow of information economy, and they're the ones that get to mediate the language for the rest of the populace. And in doing so, in mediating that language, they can get people to be more compliant with genocidal or fascist goals. which in regular fascism, it's different than regular fascism, is through the tight control of the flow of information using technology, they can more effectively pacify people and stop resistance. You know, it's like, we know there are still kids in cages. Why aren't we killing ICE agents? You know, this is a why aren't we John Browning these ICE agents? Because of the internet. Because you know, morally, we probably should.
Well, there may be.
Don't quote me on that. This is a satire.
Yeah, that
show.
was satire, but. This is a satire show. Nothing can be taken seriously. 4chan notably has this like sticky that to the front of their page after someone threatened to blow up an NFL stadium. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Do you remember when 4chan had to be like, nothing in the entire site is real, and everything is below this line is a lie.
Yeah. That's just what all websites should say.
Yeah.
Even the New York Times, just to get out of any accountability.
Well, because of various laws, they can't really be held, like, no one can really be held accountable for anything said on the internet, which is... I want to talk about one thing that get your input on, because we haven't talked about it yet.
Okay.
This thread came out. Did you see about the person who was visited by 2 highway patrolmen and blamed AOC for it? Did you see that?
He blamed AOC for it? He says, yeah, because that thread came out. Yeah, it said, this guy said that 2 highway patrol officers came to my door because I said AOC didn't microwave my tendies on Twitter.
Yeah.
And so it turns out AOC had nothing to do with this whatsoever, you're saying?
No, I don't know. I what do you think? My first thinking was like, that's awful weird, but like...
There is absolutely no evidence linking AOC to this. But I do think that people have shown up to people's doors based on shit they said on Twitter? Yeah, I think that's happened probably more than people want to acknowledge.
My thinking is this, is that guy has more than one Twitter account, and that he said something about AOC on a Twitter account that we don't know that he has, and that the highway patrolman visited him because he did say something fucked up, but just not on the one he posted from. And so people were, they couldn't obviously find it because they don't know about it. But he didn't say anything about AOC that was remotely a threat. It was just like, she has bad foreign policy. And then was visited by the highway patrolman over that? I don't think so. And then he's trying to say that this is an example of AOC has swung from... in the midst of about 20 minutes from being a darling of the left to now a certified fascist.
Yeah, well, she's the Jennifer Lawrencing of AOC is happening. You know, when everyone loved Jennifer Lawrence, and then within like 3 months, everyone just turned on her for some reason?
Yeah.
Because she was seen as annoying or problematic or something when she was everyone's special little guy before.
Yeah.
It's a massive overexposure, and then, hero worship will always do that to you. That's not to say that I think AOC definitely is a lib. She's a big lib. Like, you're not going to get... And she's like, her foreign policy shit is routinely bad. But, I don't know. What did you expect? What did you expect out of electoralism, baby?
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't... We're a liberal country. We believe in the Enlightenment values. Pretty much everyone. I think the reason why... people are so disappointed with the Bessemer vote is they think that everyone... I do think the paradigm where you're an online leftist, you kind of do think everyone else, or normal, quote-unquote, normal people share your online leftist values, when that is simply not the case. No.
Most normal people are centrist libs. Sorry, that sucks, but that's the truth.
Yeah, you have to figure out how to persuade them to join your side. It's a persuasion game.
I think that's a huge battle amongst the left, is that, who should we be attempting to persuade? Because there is a certain type... I think we've talked about Daryl Davis on the show before, the guy that talks Klan members out of it.
Yeah.
Where that just seems like, yeah, it's good that you're doing that for them, but it's kind of inefficient in terms of, gathering a mass voter base or something like that. So I think there's the questions about how we should persuade and who we should persuade. Like, should we try and seek solidarity? Like, I didn't, like, the AFL-CIO break up because, racist union members didn't want to break bread with black union members. Like, I feel like there's histories of the labor movement encountering trouble because the racist sectors of the labor movement couldn't form solidarity with their POC brothers and sisters.
Dang it. Come on, past people. Get it together so the future people won't have such a bad time.
But I've seen when people comment on these threads, like, you see the people, it's like, well, we should have actually moved harder to, win their favor. And some people say, no, it's actually good that we don't want these people in the movement in the end. I probably lean towards the former, just because I think that building power, if you're serious about building power and not just serious about, having the best opinions, then you have to get terrible people on your side. Sorry. You have to get shitty people who you hate on your side.
Yep.
And you have to get shitty people who hate you and probably think some very bad things about you on your side.
Yeah, everybody needs to work on
power.
You got to work on your own ego. Like, I got a lot of ego problems, so you got to work on
I want to mitigate this by saying that I am in a unique position, I have never been oppressed. I am a gay Jewish man who has never been oppressed.
I can oppress you.
I am like...
Want me to oppress you?
Yeah, start oppressing me right now,
I've been less oppressed than you, so I can oppress you. Come over here.
In a less oppression competition, I will beat you every time.
No, you won't. I win.
I will beat you so hard.
I'm the least
in
oppressed.
My privilege competition.
You're one rung down.
No, wait, no, because I came in and now, like, white gays are, like, the top.
What?
And the white gay men are, like, the top of the food chain in cities.
What?
So you can't...
You're telling me I'm no longer on top of the food chain in terms of oppression?
I have no idea.
All right, well, that's why I got to practice my gay Jewish accent, I guess.
You gotta practice. Just do your Cuomo voice. That's like a gay Jewish.
No, I don't. I think that the white heterosexual is still, quote unquote, at the top of the I'm a douchebag pyramid, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose so. But yeah, so I think the point is that we're in a better position to talk to these people than, say, very vulnerable, POC trans person. Like, we said that before on Should We Hug Nazis? Our conclusion was, yes, but not everyone should be forced to hug Nazis. Not everyone should be made to hug Nazis. If you're in a position to do it, as I am, if you're in a position, especially if you're in a position of privilege, and and you're like us, like harbored conservative beliefs, I do think you actually have a unique obligation to try and talk to people you don't like, and maybe tell them why socialism or left organizing or union organizing would be materially better for them.
Yeah, or using Linux.
Yeah. Or using Linux. That's what we should say. So we also, Steven, you've been on Linux. You've always been a Linux guy.
No,
but you've
I haven't.
I've
been on Linux for like 3 years.
Tell me about Linux. Tell me about your love affair with Linux.
Okay, so I started off as a Mac person with, and I learned Mac stuff really well back in 2005 through 2013. I was a Mac person for a while. So that's like 8 years. My first 8 years of computing was Mac stuff. And Mac is based on the Unix system. And you can think Unix is like the first operating system that you could put on machines that had different hardware. And now you can think of Unix as like a platonic ideal. There's a famous scene in Jurassic Park where the little girl, they're being hunted by the dinosaurs, and the little girl goes up to the computer and she goes, "It's a Unix system. I know this." And so Unix is like, if you know one Unix system, you can get around another Unix system. And it's like a platonic ideal of operating system. And the cool thing about Linux that Stevenson goes into is that he compares it to Gilgamesh. It's the Gilgamesh epic for hackers, because Unix has tools in it that were written in the 70s. Like my Linux that I just got, the new Manjaro operating system that I just installed, has a program in it called awk and grep and sed that were all written in the 70s by guys who are now like knights, they've been knighted. For you, sir, invented the command gripe, which enables you to send a direct message to the administrator of the Linux kernel and complain to him.
They're knighted by Richard Stallman, who uses a rolled up hentai in order to knight them.
Yeah, and it's like a little bit of jizz comes out when he. By the way, Richard Stallman, the originator of the Free Software Foundation, and the guy who started writing the GNU tool set that enabled Linus Torvalds to program the Linux kernel, he is being canceled for being gross.
Yeah.
for being a guy who's always like, are you sure that 17-year-old wasn't asking for it? Are you sure she wasn't asking for it?
Matt Gates defender, Richard Stallman.
Basically, yeah. So Richard Stallman, he's neurodivergent in the extreme. So
whoa, don't put him on us, buddy.
The thing is like there are other, like, if he wanted to, he could make that argument back, which is like, hey, you can't make fun of a person like me. I have autism. Like, but he doesn't. He's a kind of a god in the Linux subculture who is. His canceldom has been attempted many times, and it may succeed this time because big names in Linux like the GNOME desktop environment people, the company Red Hat, which is owned by IBM, has denounced him. He's basically being denounced by everybody and being told to step down from the Free Software Foundation, which he started back in the 80s when he saw that Bill Gates was going to sell software, which was a new thing at the time.
What's crazy about Stallman is he's one of the most moral, principled people on the planet, who actively works on his moral stance and, does praxis per his moral stance to the great benefit of thousands of people, and also a huge fucking creep. So it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. I don't know. But back to the Gilgamesh comparison. Linux is like the Gilgamesh epic because it's like it's been added to and combed through over the past now 30 years by hackers, and there are notes in it that date back to the 70s. Like, you can find manual pages that date way back, and little jokes and Easter eggs are all hidden over it, whereas you can't get to that stuff. Like, all that stuff's hidden from you on Mac and Windows. You have to know to select the hidden files if you even want to be able to see how the operating system is working. You have to check the hidden files. On Windows now, you have to check two boxes. There's like a hidden files checkbox, and then you scroll down and there's like actually all the rest of the hidden files. Do you really want to see them? Do you really want to know how your computer works? Are you sure? Because you might break something.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah. And even then, you can't get into it. To really liberate your computer, you have to go down to bare metal with the CPU and scrape the Intel blobs out of there. Because Intel puts proprietary blobs that contain NSA backdoors. So any computer with an Intel chip in it can be backdoored by the NSA. You can sort of take that out by installing something called Core Boot or Libre Boot on there, and it's supposed to get rid of it, but that sucks. Hello, NSA. Fuck you. Fuck you.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, in terms of technology that's pacifying us. I mean, much to your chagrin, we're recording this on Zoom right now, which is recording all of our thoughts.
Yeah, but when you pay for Zoom, they encrypt it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
But
I guess
they don't.
Everybody buy Zoom.
Well,
No,
that's
don't
the
buy
other
Zoom.
thing. There's no encryption technology that the NSA doesn't have a crack to. Like the best encryption, they don't let us have, and they give us shitty encryption. Like I don't know if you remember the FBI versus Apple.
No, I don't.
Well, the FBI was trying to get Apple to unlock Omar Mateen's iPhone.
Ooh.
You don't remember that?
Ooh.
And Apple refused.
No, I don't remember
Apple
that.
was like,
that's crazy.
It was one of the shooters. I think it was Omar Mateen. And so the FBI was going to sue Apple and being like, you have to let us get into this guy's phone. And eventually the FBI just paid some hacker to do it. Mm-hmm. A hacker who probably works for the NSA.
Yeah.
So the long story short, if you should read the I believe it's about 6,000 page long epic novel by Neil Stephenson called Cryptonomicon, and it will take you give you a fictionalized history of cryptography from World War II to today, and it's a very cool book. It's cool.
So I was talking about techno-fascism earlier, and I wanted to expand on it because when I say techno-fascism, the traditional definition is fascism that is aided by technology, right? People would say the Stormfront website, for example, is a techno-fascist entity. But what I mean, is techno in the two senses of the word: techno-fascist, technology and technocracy, i.e., technology should only be used in the hands. Our most powerful technologies should only be used in the hands of the most qualified. Like you said, the NSA, they have a backdoor to everything because they are the most qualified and they're keeping us safe. And the flow of this information economy should only belong to the elites because they earn it. And through this techno-fascism, through this concentrating of power in an elite sort of corporate, military, industrial government complex that just exists nowadays, we are engaging in an actual type of fascism, one that's a lot slower than the older form of fascism, one that genocides people a lot slower, but one that is still very much dependent on an us versus them mentality. Only it's shifted the them to be essentially poor people. Because you keep the poverty out. You build the wall to keep the poverty out, right? Mm-hmm. And I think actually Hillbilly Elegy is a perfect representation of this new paradigm, because what it's doing is it's taking the anger at the culture that you once had toward that, like these conservative Americans or liberal Americans once had towards, say, black people, like when Joe Biden in the 80s was saying, I don't want my kids to grow up in a racial jungle. What you've done is that you've now taken them and put that onto poor white people. So it's this new form of classist genocide, this way of applying these colonial tactics to the metropole and trying to root out our poverty underclass very slowly and through natural causes, and not just in our own country, but in the third world countries across the world. If they were so smart, they should be rich, Mm-hmm. And that is sort of the new fascism that we're under. And the reason why it's more powerful and more insidious than the earlier version of fascism was because the earlier version of fascism, which conveyed the us versus them mentality in a very direct way, in this sort of non-simulacra way, in that we have a friend, we have an enemy, and we need to kill the enemy. So as such, because everyone eventually becomes the enemy under fascism, and people rapidly become the enemy under fascism, it draws attention to itself, and every fascist government, the Nazis, Mussolini, got their ass handed to them within 20 years because they were just too aggressive and people saw the threat of them. Whereas with this techno-fascism, because it abstractifies so much, because it abstractifies the friend-enemy distinction so much, and it becomes unclear who we're drawing as our enemy. It seems as if, no, the poor people are our friends, when really, actually, coded into the language of this late-stage capitalist neoliberal techno-fascism is this genocidal ambition towards the internationally impoverished. And so that's where I think, we're at. And sort of liberalism, in its attempt to control the flow of information and limit it to just the elite, in the way that we're seeing with the current Biden administration's and current and Democratic and Republican attempts to have control over social media companies and direct free speech that way, we're seeing this sort of increasing techno-fascism and this merging of information only being controlled and mediated by the most powerful, and in it leading to the classist genocide that is currently ongoing, and that we both are participating in with our inactivity. And all of you listeners are too.
Well, you
so
can
feel good about yourself.
You can work against it. I was thinking by just developing competencies that will enable you to act outside of the frameworks that they try to force you into. Like if you develop some basic competencies in various things, and it can be anything from like technological things on to anything, then you can escape the boxes that they try to put you into. Like if you learn how to draw, then you don't have to waste time maybe, I don't know, looking at other people's, like, if I'm talking about like corporatized things of entertainment. Like if you can entertain yourself through drawing, then you don't have to have a Netflix subscription. Maybe if you can build a garage door opener, then you don't have to buy one from Amazon. So if you can
learn to code is what we're saying.
Well, look, everyone should. I mean, that's the thing about I don't like the criticism of it being direct as a direction to like coal miners. Like coal miners should learn to code just like everyone should. I mean, everyone should learn to code, because if you know how to do it, then you don't have to rely on software someone else wrote that might be tracking you in order to sell you shit that you don't want. And that's what's happening.
Like I'm a Luddite. I'll never learn to code, but I still think that you're right. Everyone should learn to code, because if you actually want to do praxis as a leftist, there's no better praxis than hacking. Really, that's the best thing that you can do to fuck with power. Is hacking.
And in terms of like coding, there's several layers of abstraction that you can go to depending on like your level. But pretty much everyone can understand how a website works. And you don't have to be creating software to quote unquote learn to code. You can just like learn how shit works a little bit. And it's insulting to suggest that coal miners couldn't handle that. I mean, it would take a 30-minute conversation, and you could probably explain how a network works and how a web page and a server works using metaphors that aren't very complicated.
Well, I think the callousness to that phrase more comes from the idea that
you have to do it by yourself, I think.
Yeah, coal miners don't have the resources necessarily. If it was easy to learn how to code, like if it was, because a lot of people, like I said before, only very few people have that autodidactic ability to teach themselves how to get out of it. Most people require education in order to really pick up a skill.
Yep.
And because these hypothetical coal miners don't have any of those resources, that's why it's callous. If you were like, say, learn to code, we have all of these wonderful programs and a boot camp, and here's a paid internship where you'll get, if that was part of it, then that statement would be seen as less callous.
And it would be seen as less callous also it would be less callous if we provided those coal miners with like just an education the way it's supposed to work, which is like a good education teaches you how to be an autodidact. Because you can't be in school forever. But what you need to learn in school is how to teach yourself. And so it helps you develop note-taking skills and comprehension skills and like source searching skills, so you can figure out how to teach yourself something when you actually find something interesting, which you probably won't in school because school sucks.
As to paraphrase Mystical, shake your ass, teach yourself, shake your ass, show us what you're working with. Jim Watkins is a Morlock.
Yeah, he freaked me out. He's freaky looking.
He's a freaky guy. So we've been making references to the QAnon Into the Storm HBO documentary, which I would recommend that, even though it's pretty unpleasant and in a lot of... It has very historically important footage in it. In the same way that Citizen 4 is a historically important movie, this QAnon documentary actually is pretty interesting. Just getting these first-hand documents of these people that have profoundly shaped culture in ways that were very just unprecedented, even 5 years before. So I think, I would recommend the documentary just for that. It's very, like, if you peace out after the first episode because it's too fucking disgusting for you, I totally get it. But yeah, it's very well done. And its theme song is great. And its opening credits graphics are nice.
Oh, I didn't like that's the one thing I didn't like very much, was the credit scene. But the HBO app sucked so much, every time I try to skip it, it like starts the episode over. I'm like, no, that's the opposite of what I want, and now I have to sit through it again. And I am itching to press skip again, but I know if I do, it'll start it from the beginning.
So yeah, Ron and Jim Watkins, just some of the weirdest looking guys on Earth. And the fact that but what's weird about them is their father and son relationship seems weirdly warm, even. Dude, I don't know how to describe it.
They're the devil and the Antichrist. I mean, Jim Watkins looks like the South Park Satan has gotten a skin suit. It's like he's all bulky in the top, and it's just like, it's because Satan's black wings are folded up inside his skin. And he's got these turned up eyebrows like only a devil would have. He's got a snake ring. Did you see his snake ring?
He has a snake ring. Yeah.
He's the fucking devil, dude.
He's into fancy pens and watches. He's the big titty devil.
Check Ron Watkins' his scalp for a 666. I guarantee one is there.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a mistranslation. It's actually 1/6 in the original Aramaic. So, guess who doesn't know?
Okay, so check for that one or that whatever. I don't care.
What's the mark of the beast? Isn't the mark of the beast you find like a little gravy train circling their asshole or something like that?
Gravy train. What's gravy train? Is that, I think...
well, the gravy train is a metaphor, but now I used it in the idea of there being an actual train full of gravy.
that hauls gravy, like around a table, like a toy train?
Yeah, we need it in Canada for our poutines. Oh, the gravy train is here for our poutines.
You guys have, like, Canadian Thanksgiving, there's a couple of differences, right? It's earlier, and it's also just all poutine. Like, that's all you eat.
Yeah, it's all poutine. Yeah. We have our turkey poutine. We have our cranberry poutine. We have our stuffing poutine. Yo, stuffing poutine actually sounds delicious. Okay. Hit me up with that shit. Instead of using fries, using stuffing and gravy and cheese curds?
Yeah, that sounds better than the regular poutine, almost.
All right, I might have to make this soon. I might have to make some stuffing poutine. Hit me up on the next episode of House of Decline for how that goes. I will commit to doing that this week.
And please email any recipes for various poutine you have to houseofdecline@gmail.com. House is spelled H-O-W-S.
I will say unironically, I do love poutine. I think it is delicious.
I was thinking, do you think I should buy like all the misspellings of our website so that stupid people can see it too?
Yeah, you should buy the one with the normal spelling of house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
The non-German spelling of house. Yeah, it's talking about technology. Woo! You've also been rapidly teaching yourself CSS as you develop our site.
It's not rapid. No, you think it's rapid, but I started watching that video lecture like 2 years ago.
Well, it's bearing fruit now. It seems rapid.
It takes a while to teach yourself stuff. Like it should...
I mean, because I can't wrap my head around that shit at all, which is why I'm very impressed.
I think you could.
I'm sure if I took time to do it, I know if I wanted to, I could do it. But it's the key is wanting to, and you actually want to. So, like, I'm impressed by your desire to.
Well, I haven't done anything cool yet because it doesn't actually do anything. Like, once we get the forum up, then running that forum will be fun. We should definitely make a House of Decline forum where people can log in and type a little question.
Yeah, I would like, a free something awful. That's also not... Low-Tax finally got kicked off of Something Awful.
What a weirdo. I never went on Something Awful.
Oh, I loved Something Awful deeply. It really informed my humor on a lot of stuff, and it was really this... what was interesting about it, too, was all these people just doing it for free, like doing these really elaborate, extended, well-researched comedy bits, essentially, just for each other, because it had that sort of culture of elitism in a way, where it's like you were all in competition to see who could be the funniest or the cleverest. Whereas I feel like and the fact that it had that like $15 entry fee as a gatekeep to this sort of elitist society was pretty interesting. But it's always why the comedy was so unique and specific, because it had that sort of way to curate its users who were like really serious about trying to make other people laugh with weird internet shit.
Yeah, I think that's why I never did it. I didn't want to pay $15.
Yeah, I'd never lurked the forums. I was never a forum guy. I just like their front page stuff like Comedy Goldmine, and although it turns out their Flash Tub animator Schmorky was an actual pedophile, so bad news on that.
That's why Flash has been removed from the internet.
Yeah, too many actual pedophiles were using it.
And it's also incredibly insecure. It like hooks into your video card. It's very insecure. It's like
more insecure than Issa Rae.
Like if you is that because she has a show called that.
She has a show called Insecure.
I thought you were just being mean.
I'm sure in real life she's very confident because she's a beautiful millionaire.
You just being mean to that person for no reason, dude.
No,
wow.
She's no.
Wow, dude.
Issa Rae's fine.
Wow.
I don't know anything about Insecure. It seems like it's a very middle of the road, competently made show.
Actually, I watched it.
How did you like it?
It's like, it's okay. It's not really my type of show. It's not for me. But I saw the whole thing. It's pretty good. Like crazy, like it's like fucked up relationship stuff happens, and like they're all trying to find a relationship and a job, and it's like a be in your 20s type movie, type show.
She seems like a good writer. Like I've never seen it, but from what I've gathered, her fame doesn't seem to be unearned. She seems to like genuinely be very talented.
I mean, there's everyone's fame is undeserved. There's no famous person deserves to be famous. And if you talk to a lot of them, they all probably were like, I kind of wish I wasn't famous.
No, if you talk to the good ones, they're like, I wish I wasn't famous.
Yeah.
I think people that actively seek fame, including me, are psychopaths.
Oh, you crazy. You so crazy. Why are you so crazy?
I'm a crazy guy because I'm searching for that social community that especially Twitter, which is all about craving the approval of strangers. It's all about attempting to get strangers to like the things that you say, in my view. I mean, people use Twitter differently, like just amongst their friends or to like as journalistic things, but the way that I use Twitter and a lot of other people use Twitter is to like gain approval. Am I clever enough? Am I clever enough? Mm-hmm. All of these hearts say that I am clever enough. All of these retweets say that I am clever enough. So, talk about a pacifying graphical user interface, or one that, convinces me that I'm doing something when I'm actually doing very little. Or one that, gives me that simulacra of community, and as a result makes me pacified, makes me feel like I'm actually participating in something.
The sense of community is from their brilliant interface. It's not real because no one knows you. No one knows who you are. No one, and if you when you're interacting with someone on Twitter, you're not interacting with that whole person. You're interacting with the stupid bullshit they said to get you to interact. So it's like, let's try to get as many people interacting as possible. See what happens. And I don't know, I should probably quit it, but I want to try to promote the podcast on it. So
I mean, I like Twitter. I think all social media is bad, but Twitter is definitely the one that produces the funniest content. It's definitely I heard someone call Twitter 4chan for libs once or something like that, and I think it's pretty much like that.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the thing about Twitter is that you can't get groups of discussion unless you go into like the DMs and have DM groups.
Yeah.
Like 4chan you can go to a board that's only supposed to be about one thing. Like you can separate your technology from your video games, from your artworks, from your politics, to every topic.
Yeah, but I think Twitter does that just by having accounts that are very focused on one thing. Yeah. Like as opposed to having 40 boards like 4chan has every user is a board. Every user is a forum unto themselves, which is a weird format.
Yeah, but a lot of people so many people don't actually post that much or use it that way that there's no way of grouping people. They make you make lists, like you can make lists of users, but the 4chan's competitors Reddit, really, with the posts and the boards. Twitter's like, I don't know. It's kind of unique, I guess. There's a Twitter clone that the right wingers are moving to called Mastodon.
Fun.
Yeah, sort of. There's something called the Fediverse or the Fediverse, FEDI, Fediverse. That's like
it's not based on FediWap.
No. It's like a decentralized, everything's decentralized stuff. Like because they're all getting kicked off social media for being racists and hateful and vaccine deniers.
But that's a thing. That's should we be kicking off these Nazis, knowing, or maybe these aren't Nazis, or some of them must be, but should we be kicking off these awful people? Does that set a bad precedent for this encroaching techno-fascism?
Yeah, I mean, we can take Trump. Let's take Trump. Should Trump have been banned from Twitter?
I mean, no. I say no because I love his tweets.
But he encouraged the big erection at the Capitol.
Yeah, he encouraged. But should Joe Biden be banned from Twitter because he did an illegal war in Syria?
No, but he didn't. He didn't encourage insurrection. Is what I mean.
I guess, one thing is too far, I guess.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do?
Well, it seems Alex's video is frozen.
Oh, good old Twitter. Good old Jack. Jack Dorsey in the back. All right, Steven has paused. There's something a little wrong with this video call. So what I am going to do is I'm going to say that this episode has been about technology. A wonderful, wonderful episode about technology. And I want to... Oh, I'm reconnecting. And while I'm explaining everything away very smoothly... Dude, ignore the man behind the curtain. Ignore the man behind the curtain. We're getting our technical difficulties rearranged here. Talk about how our communication is mediated by technology. Even on this recording, the company that owns my communication with my co-host Steven is now mediating my language. So, what do we learn from this Neil Stephenson essay? I think we learned that we're in a world of simulacras and that we try and escape the fantasy matrix. We try and claw our way out of it. But it's no good because it's just matrices all the way down. Okay. This is House of Decline, and I love you all. Goodbye.
Hi everyone, this is Steven as the editor coming in just to say that it was Alex's fault, not my fault that the video dropped. And I told him not to stop recording, but he did anyway. So there we go. See you next week. Bye.